You ready, Paul? Thank you. Good evening. I'll call the July 10th, 2023 Genoa Township Zoning Commission meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. and we're located here in the Genoa Township Hall. Mr. Schaefer, would you do the roll call?
Roll call, Mr. Burnett.
Present.
Mr. Carter.
Here.
Mr. Welch.
Here.
Mr. Sears.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Present.
I also note that Mr. Wester is in attendance. Mr. Leff is absent, and he did communicate that prior to the meeting.
The statement of policy, this meeting may be recorded. Such recordings are public record, may be posted online, and could be subject to review in court. As is the adopted policy of the Zoning Commission, all applicants will be granted an opportunity to make their formal presentation. The audience may then be granted an opportunity to comment, followed by applicant's response and questions from the commission. The chairperson may limit repetitive debate and reserves the following rights: to limit comment to items on the agenda, to limit public comment to 5 minutes per person, to restrict the number of times a member of the public is permitted to speak, and to enact any other reasonable ad hoc protocols or measures necessary to maintain a fair, safe, and orderly meeting. This policy was adopted by the Commission to provide for the respectful, constructive, and efficient discussion of business scheduled for consideration and to allow for proper due process as required by law. Mr. Schaefer presented the minutes from the June 12th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? All right, let me ask, are there any amendments or changes to those minutes as presented? Do you have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the June 12, 2023 meeting minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Schaefer, roll call.
Roll call, Mr. Burnett.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Sears.
Yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Abstain.
Welch.
Yes. I would now like to call the public hearing to order at 7:03 p.m. And the following legal notice. J.C. Manny requesting approval of a final development plan amendment to revise the proposed location of a sign and remove non-required screening on 0.862 acres at 6475 Maxtown Road, Westerville, Ohio, 43082. Currently zoned Planned Commercial District, PCD, zoning case number 2023-04. Anybody that is going to testify with respect to this hearing, would you please stand? Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury? I do. Thank you. The legal notice for this meeting was printed and published on June 24th, 2023 in the Delaware Gazette and posted at the Genoa Township Hall on June 21st, 2023. An attempt to mail notice of this hearing to property owners within 500 feet of the subject property was also made. The following were marked as Exhibits A through G: A, the legal notice; B, the affidavit of advertisement; C, the sign-in sheet; D, application and plans originally received June 1st of this year; E, the staff technical review dated July 3rd for the July 10th, 2023 meeting; F, the staff memo dated July 3rd for the July 10th, 2023 meeting; and G, all public comments received between June 1st, 2023 and July 10th, 2023. Mr. Schaefer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this evening, we have Pat Mandrell representing Maxtown Property 169 LLC, seeking final development plan amendment approval for the project known as J.C. Manny, located on approximately 0.829 acres at 6475 Maxtown Road, to accomplish the following. 1, remove previously required and approved trees and fencing along the site's western border with 6463 Maxtown Road. This screening was required when the preliminary and final development plans were reviewed and voted on by the township. However, would not be required due to the fact that the adjacent property at 6463 Maxtown Road would not, or has since been rezoned to commercial. Number 2, seeking to relocate the approved freestanding ground-mounted sign approximately 3 feet 3 inches closer to the Maxtown Road right-of-way to move it away from the parking lot and prevent potential damage from nearby vehicles. A divergence is required, which I'll get into in a moment. Landscaping shrubs would similarly be moved up to stay in line with the proposed ground sign. They're also asking to reduce the number of shrub plantings along the parking lot's Maxtown Road frontage from 27 to 18 to allow for better growth. A letter from landscaping company Hill Land Management LLC, further explaining the rationale for this request, has been included in the submission. I'm going to note that a divergence was previously granted for the height of the parking lot screening, but said divergence did not involve the specific number of plantings. The zoning resolution similarly doesn't require a specific number or ratio. The spirit and intent of this requirement is to screen the parking lot, specifically headlights, from, in this case, Maxtown Road. A little bit of history. The Board of Trustees approved the rezoning from rural residential to planned commercial, and as well as the preliminary development plan for the subject business on November 18th, 2021. That was zoning case number 2021-03. The Genoa Township Board of Trustees approved the final development plan for the subject business on May 3rd, 2022, zoning case number 2022-02. Zoning permit 2022-138 for the subject business was issued by staff on May 25th of 2022. Required permits for signage have not yet been obtained by the applicant. I suspect probably waiting to see the results of this application. The Genoa Township Board of Trustees approved the rezoning preliminary development plan for the parcel immediately to the west at 6463 Maxtown Road, AKA Multi-Sound Studios, on May 4th, 2023. That was zoning case number 2022-07. Final development plan approval for that project has yet to be obtained. Access to the site is unchanged and will not be affected by these requests. The shared driveway with the property to the west is no longer expected, as a separate driveway to it has since been approved by the City of Westerville. Stormwater management utilities, parking lot coverage, lighting, and building architecture similarly have not been changed and would not be impacted by this request, or these requests. Just going to review quickly the divergences that were previously granted for this site that still remain and are not being altered as part of this request. I'll try to just gloss over them real quick. If you recall, there was a divergence related to the track size of that was being rezoned from RR to PCD, since it was below the 5-acre minimum. There was divergence related to the 75-foot landscape buffer where it abuts residential properties. Divergence, which had required parking lots and lots adjacent to residential be set back 75 feet. That was reduced. I will note that despite the elimination of the landscaping along the western boundary, the previously granted divergence setback from that lot line is still being retained and honored. So the parking lot isn't shifting. They're literally just asking to get rid of the landscaping there. None of the layout to the site itself is changing. There was also divergence that was granted regarding the placement of the building closer than 100 feet to any district boundary line, and the aforementioned divergence related to the height of the screening of the parking lot along Maxtown Road. This request, as I also noted this evening, does include an additional divergence for the Commission's consideration. It's a divergence to Section 1804.07, which requires signs be set back a minimum of 10 feet from the right-of-way. The applicant is requesting a setback of 6 feet 9 inches for the previously approved freestanding ground mount sign to move it further away from the nearby parking lot for the reasons I've already mentioned. If you recall, this was something we even discussed a little bit when they came through the first time. At that juncture, the applicant was comfortable with the sign where it was. Obviously, that's no longer the case, which is why we're here this evening. I did meet with the applicant about potential changes on the site back on May 25th. And after we had those discussions, I determined that certain revisions would need to come back in front of the commission for approval, hence the subject application. My technical review is attached. There are several revisions that need to be made to the application packet. However, I would say that they are relatively minor in nature and are primarily housekeeping items, just needed to keep the record and the text clear and consistent with itself throughout the document. There's no major compliance concerns. If agreeable to the applicant, the commission could establish a condition that they be addressed prior to issuance of any zoning permits for signage if the commission was interested in moving forward with rendering a decision on the application this evening. The parking spaces along Maxtown Road face towards the building. I'm just noting this, so as such, the only time headlights from the vehicles parking on the site would shine towards Maxtown Road would likely only be when a vehicle parking during evening or nighttime hours or early morning hours backs into said space. I guess you could see the brake lights on those cars too as they're backing out. But those usually aren't as problematic as the headlights, which shine out on towards the road and can be a problem for people. Revisions to the final development plan are limited to those requested herein unless otherwise approved by the zoning inspector under the authority provided to me by Article 27, Section 2710.01. That's just put in there to say The applicant does have the right to make some certain alterations to the site if they so wish, and I have the right to approve them as long as they fall under that provision. So I don't want anyone in the audience to say, well, that's, what they're doing on that site is different. There is a chance that it could have been approved by me. I know we've discussed some very, very minor things, but I don't even think we even got to the point of even documenting any changes at this point, because we wanted to see sort of where things were going with these specific items first. But just putting it out there that the applicant does have the right to make minor revisions to the site, and I have that right to approve them without having to bring them back in front of the commission. If this application is approved, the applicant will need to apply and obtain a revised zoning permit, because obviously the zoning permit we issued would no longer match what would theoretically be approved this evening if that's the way things head. Staff did receive some complaints about the current construction of the subject business from a neighbor. None of the complaints we received were related to the items included in the subject amendment request this evening. I did respond to that email, and I provided a copy to you as part of the memorandum packet, or else at least I intended to. You also received one email from another resident in the area who had some concerns just about the proposal, about the number of divergences, the setback of the sign, and the height of the landscaping. I believe I forwarded that to you the other day for your consideration. So that's part of the record. Moving on to the technical review, I mean, honestly, these comments are all real minor. I'm not even sure they really make sense to go through in any kind of detail. It's really just about making sure numbers are consistent across the board, text is consistent across the board, citations and dates, and that the text doesn't read I just want to make it clear to anyone reading the current iteration of the text that it's an amended version of the text and not the older version of the text, basically. And again, just correcting the numbers. There was, in some place, they said the sign was moving 3 feet. In some place, they said it was moving 3 feet, 3 inches. I believe the latter is correct, but let's make sure we're consistent across the board. So with that, I'm basically going to wrap up my presentation. And obviously, as always, I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can dive down into any of those comments specifically if you so wish.
Questions for Mr. Schaefer?
Did you find, what did I call you, ask you about the fence?
Yeah, so Mr. Carter asked me about some of the other signs along Maxtown Road. I didn't do like an in-depth formal evaluation of everything. I didn't like go through and pull all the permits. He was asking if any of the other signs on Maxtown Road are closer than 10 feet. Looking at the county GIS and doing a Google Street View, I would say definitely yes. There are numerous of them that are closer than 10 feet. A lot of that is likely a result of, A, the fact that many of them were done under the old sign code, which was radically different than the current sign code, and the fact that Westerville has probably expanded the right-of-way of Maxtown Road since some of them were put in. Candidly, in just eyeballing it, of all the signs from Arby's down to this site, I think Mr. Hassey's property, which Bless Construction was in, I'm not sure if they're still there, that sign looks to probably be compliant, and Wendy's sign might be compliant, but all the other ones are probably less than 10 feet. Now, they don't look that way because the right-of-way is so wide through there that there's a lot of grass between the road and the sign. So you would never know visually that those signs are as close to the right-of-way as they are.
Because I went by there and I looked where the concrete was and where the sign is now, it just has their address on it, and that was about 15 feet. But 6.5 feet or whatever from the road looked pretty darn close. But the right-of-way, you're saying, is maybe 8 feet beyond the concrete?
I don't know the exact width, but I know it's pretty significant in width in a lot of those areas.
Okay,
And
so it wouldn't be 6'6" or whatever it is, 6'9" from the concrete that's there right now?
The concrete is in the curb.
It's just flat right there. It's just the end of the,
Without having that one specifically pulled up, I don't know. But I can tell you a lot of them, like when I was looking, were really close, if not right on the right-of-way line.
okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Schaefer? Ms. Mandrell? Can you make sure your microphone's on? Thank you.
Pretty much just going to follow up with Joe said, because he kind of wrapped up everything I was going to say. So the first request is one of 3, and that is the trees and the fences on the west side of our property. It was really never our intention to have them there. I kind of asked Joe, and he said that's private property, so I had to have them. But he said, you know, at some stage, if it ever goes commercial, you can come back, and now it's commercial, so I'm back. So we're asking, you know, to have the fence and the trees removed. Obviously, it won't affect any of the trees that back up to the fencing of private property to our north and to our east. It's just the west where it's commercial. So that's our first request. Our second request is for the yard sign, and Joe's right. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but mentally, I guess I wasn't there thinking it was going to be a problem, but it's definitely going to be a problem. Our parking in the front goes in and it faces to the north. And so it's when those people back up, our sign is right on that curb. So it's a very possibility that it's going to get hit, and the sign is very, very, very expensive. So we're just asking to move it, you know, 3 feet, 3 inches. And what I did was just measure the back of cars, sedans and SUVs and some trucks to see what the distance is from their tire. If they hit the curb, how far their car overlaps onto the that grassy area as to how far to move the sign up. So I think when you were asking about the grassy area, if I'm understanding, there's a 10-foot right-of-way that the city of Westerville has, and then we're talking about where this sign will place.
10 feet beyond the concrete.
Well, it's from the Maxtown Road. If you look at the 10 feet, and then it's 6.9, so it's 16 feet, 9 inches back from the street,
Okay.
is
Thank
basically.
you.
Yeah, the city of Westerville has the first 10 feet of our property
Okay.
right away, which they have everybody's. So, so that's the reason for the asking for the sign to be moved. And then the last one is just, I finally got with a landscaper that's going to do our work, and we went to the nursery and we found the boxwoods we want, and they are going to be about 36 inches wide when they finally are mature. And he goes, you really, 24 will crowd them, and 18 is, or 27 is too many. He said, I would recommend 18, but, you know, we're just doing that for beautification and health of the plants, so, you know. But he just said, if I were you, I'd ask to have 18 instead of 27. 27 is excessive for that space, especially with the sign in the middle. So those are our 3 requests. I'll be happy to answer any questions or anything that you might have, so.
Any questions for Ms. Mandrell?
This is not what we're, not on these 3 things you're asking for today, but I'm just curious. I went and drove into your lot and I looked in the back, and there's a wooden fence there. And I tried to find on the plan, we talked about it, but are you putting in a barrier also?
It's all trees back there,
It's gonna-
yes.
That you're going to plant
Yes,
now? Okay.
yes, yeah.
But there's not another wall or fence?
No, we didn't do fence on fence. When we had our meetings, no one thought that was attractive, so they will keep their fence. But as the board said, if they ever took their fence down, then there's no privacy, so that's why we have trees there. And along the whole north and the west, on the east side too. So, yep.
Thank you.
That's in addition to the fence that you are putting adjacent to the dumpster loading area, correct?
Say that again?
You had that fence section.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So actually, the house at 63, 64, whatever, to my west, they won't even see us coming and going in our parking lot, because there'll be the trash dumpster that will be enclosed by fence, and then there's another fence between that and the building. So from that house sits back so far, they'll never even know if we're in the building or not, really. So,
and I believe that property was looking at doing fence on their side as well. And I remember we had this discussion with the board. You wanted to reserve the right actually to remove that landscaping originally as part of the final plan, and the board was just not supportive of the idea at the time. I think there was some concern about, well, what if that property never goes or rezones? And I think they felt like it was just cleaner to not put that provision in there, and then for the applicant to come back and make the request should that property rezone, which it obviously did.
My last question would be, Joe, so if you drive along and you see this, do you think what they are doing will fit in with the rest of the businesses from an aesthetic look.
As far as the sign goes?
The sign and the bushes and all that stuff.
Yeah, I never want to make people put in plants that aren't going to survive. I'd rather see less plants, but plants that are actually going to live and grow to their full potential. As far as the sign goes, I mean, when you drive by it, I mean, just by the math, it's going to look almost like it's 17 feet away from the road.
Right,
We're
okay.
talking 6 feet, not inches, but when you add in that 10 feet. So Mr. Benson's actually pulling up the auditor site right now. So that building, let's see, Paul, can you hover over Harris? So Harris's sign at this point now, because of, again, old sign code, right-of-way expansion, I'm not exactly sure why, but it's almost right there on the right-of-way line. It looks I mean, you can see how significant, that's well more than 1 lane's worth of traffic between the curb and where that sign, or where that right-of-way line is. I mean, you could almost fit another Maxtown road within the width of that right-of-way through there. So it looks way far back when you drive by, but it's actually almost right on the line. And then, Paul, if you keep moving west, that's J Company. You can see their signs basically almost right on the line anymore. And obviously, J Company's a lot older. Harris is also a unique situation because when it got developed, it was rezoned, and originally the development plan was tied to the building that J Company is. So that was also sort of a unique circumstance that we don't have here, where there was a lot of legacy issues to deal with Harris that we don't have here. So then if you continue going on west, let's see, I can't tell if some of those are signs. Cardinals is now basically almost right at the right-of-way line, and you can see that's probably almost, that's got to be more than 10 feet away from that paved area, if not pretty close. So, and you keep going, I believe that's Jamison Associates and all the businesses in there, their signs right there on the line. I mean, we can keep going down, but like I said, Northgate Center sign is pretty close to the right-of-way line. Wendy's was the only one that looked like it might be 10 feet back at this point. There it is right there. And it's even hard to tell there because all the landscaping that's around it. Looks really nice, the landscaping does. But that sign might be 10 feet. To give you an idea of how wide 10 feet is on this aerial, that sign might be 10 feet back. And then if you go down to Arby's is right at the corner, and theirs is basically almost on the line as well. So I guess long answer to a short question is no, I don't think it'll be terribly out of character.
Okay, thanks.
Did I understand you correctly, Joe, that you said Westerville's not requiring the sound studio to have a?
Correct. They did a 180 on that on us, and now the sound studio is going to have their own driveway. That happened, I believe, after you saw it at the board level.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Any other questions for Ms. Mandel?
Public comment?
Yeah, okay. Any public comment? If you would, please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
Hi, Ed Sturgis, 7156, your northerly neighbor, I believe. My question's mostly on, were they granted a variance for the commercial to residential 10-foot fence requirement? Because right now we can see everything on their property. Our fence is this high and 25 years old. It could fall over any minute. I was planning to take it down because of the fence.
So they were granted some code relief on the setbacks due to the size of the property. Now, the development's obviously still under construction. I don't believe the fence up that you're putting up is up yet. None of the landscaping is in yet.
Nope, I don't. The fence is coming down,
Well, then trees will.
But on her side of the property.
On our property.
so there's no boundary
But it would be
between
October.
children running out and getting hit by their cars or anything.
Well, they have a fence section that's gonna, running from their building along. Paul, can you bring up the site plan? That'd be easy. Okay. So I'm gonna have Paul Benson bring up the site plan. Maybe I'll just go up there and I can point it out real quick to help explain sort of what we're talking about here for you. It's probably on the agendas page, isn't it? Yeah, there you go. Wrong folder. Oh, was there not a site plan on the, oh, because it's not being amended. No, that's okay. He'll find it. Okay, I'm gonna just go up here real quick. So this looks, so what, they have their building here, and then this is the parking and loading area here. They have a fence section that runs from here to block visibility of this area and to prevent people from straying back and forth. I mean, I guess someone could go around here, but that's a pretty tight area there. And then they will have landscaping along the back here. I understand you're saying your fence is going away, but they will still have the required landscaping. So the landscaping they're asking to remove is along the western boundary line here. To the adjacent, what is now commercial property. I think Paul's trying to find the. Yeah. So everything she X'd out here. So here you can see all the trees, the landscaping, and it's a little harder to see, but this is the fence that I was talking about there. So for the purposes of this application this evening, the scope of the conversation for the commission is just the removal of the landscaping, the relocation of the sign, and the reduction of the plantings up here. You know, this fence has already been approved, is there. The reduction of setbacks has been there. This landscaping's already been approved. We can't, I mean, so it's sort of in place, and they obviously have the supplemental landscaping over there as well. So that's the lay of the land on that.
Any other questions, comments? Any other public comment? All right, we will close the public comment. I had a question and it escapes me. Are there any, and either Mr. Schaefer or Ms. Mandrell, you can answer this. Are there any trees on that western boundary line? Existing trees?
No, I don't believe so.
I couldn't remember.
Not
Okay.
that I recall. There was some on the east, but
I know there's on the east,
I
but
think there's a couple, but they're on the multi-sound property and not on.
okay. Any other comments, questions? Discussion on the application itself?
I think these are fair questions, so I think, yeah, I think it's a fair assessment to come here and ask for it, so.
Okay.
I just wanted to, Joe answered the questions. I was just curious how it looked. If it was going to jut out in front of all the other signs or whatever. Apparently it's not, and, it's not going to.
No, and there's some good pictures in the packet to
Yeah.
compare.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's going to go.
Okay. So the divergence review. That, or do you want me to do it?
Jim, Mr. Carter, let you do it.
Sure. Let me just start at the top.
Yeah.
The commission reviewed each divergence request against the standards set forth within section 2707 of the township zoning resolution to determine if such a request is warranted. Per section 2707.07, unless a deviation from development standards is specifically approved as a divergence, the same shall be complied with. Divergence from section 1804.07 to allow for a freestanding ground-mounted sign to be 6 feet and 9 inches from the Maxtown Road right-of-way line. Do these divergences promote or not have an adverse impact on A, the conservation, protection of natural resources, scenic areas, wildlife habitat, and the historical and unique natural features of the land? B, the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the present and future inhabitants of Genoa Township. The quality of life within Genoa Township through the protection of the total environment, the prevention of nuisances and hazards, and the provision of adequate light, air, and convenient access to property. The assurance of the compatibility of land uses which are either adjacent or in proximity to each other. The orderly development of all land within the township to its appropriate use. The most appropriate use of land to facilitate and provide adequate public and private improvements. And looking up at the initial part, it says not having, I don't know if the divergences promote things, but it certainly does not have an adverse impact on anything. And I would say it has negative, It does not have an adverse impact on A, B, C, D, E, or F.
And should we do the other two right now? We have the
Well, they're
divergence
not
in that.
divergences.
Oh, you're right.
They're
They're just,
amendments to the.
they're just amendments. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay.
These
Yep.
amendments. I will add, we forgot to update the script template to reflect the newest divergence review standard, which is consistency with the comp plan. I can't think of anything in the comp plan that this would,
I agree.
since that primarily deals with density.
So the next issue to decide is whether or not this is a major or minor amendment to the final development plan. If it's a major development, it would then go to the Board of Trustees. If we determine that this is a minor amendment, then it would be decided here, or this would be the final step, only and final step, excuse me, so.
I think it's a minor.
I think it's minor.
I agree.
It's minor.
Yeah, okay.
So do we have to go through 27.1, the top of page 4?
You don't need to read all of that. I mean, I would just read maybe through A through H, just to make sure you've put on the record that you looked at all those standards and you're all in agreement that it seems to not trigger any of them.
So for consideration between whether or not an amendment is major or minor, we have to look at A, the significant change in the use or character of the development, B, a significant increase in overall coverage of structures, C, an increase in the density, D, an increase in the problems of traffic circulation and public utilities, E, a significant reduction in approved open space, F, a reduction of required off-street parking or loading space, G, a reduction in required pavement widths, or H, a reduction of the acreage in the planned development. I'll just open up comment. I don't think any of these amendments or divergences affect any of those. So do I have a motion then on whether or not this is a major or minor amendment?
I move to declare the subject final development plan amendment application, J.C. Manning, zoning case 2023-4, including all plans and material, a minor amendment to the final development plan per section 2710.03 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, thus not requiring a subsequent action by the Board of Trustees. This motion is being made for the following reasons. After review of items, whether it should be a major or minor, nothing is significant, and therefore it be a minor. Motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Schaefer, roll call.
Roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Sears.
Yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes. And so we move to page 7. Do I have a motion then on, well, I guess approval or denial, depending on which way you want to go, but whoever makes the motion.
I move to approve the following: the subject final development plan amendment application, including all plans and materials in which have been deemed by this commission to be minor amendment pursuant section 271003, submitted by J.C. Manning to revise the location of a proposed sign and remove non-required screening on approximately .862 acres of property located at 6463 Maxtown Road, Westerville, Ohio, 43082, currently zoned planned commercial district. Zoning Commission case number 2023-04, incorporating exhibits A through G and any commitments made by the application during this hearing.
Mr. Carter, I'll just note, we accidentally drafted the wrong address in there. It should be 6475.
Okay, I correct myself to 6465 Maxtown Road.
6475.
6475 Maxtown Road.
Apologies.
Should we go down to the following divergences?
Mhm.
Okay, I further move to approve the following divergences as previously discussed from the Genoa Township zoning resolution. And how do you want to word that, Mr. Schaefer?
You can go back to page 3 there and just regurgitate what's listed there, number 1 at the top.
Divergence from section 180407 of the zoning resolution to allow for a freestanding ground-mounted sign to be 6 feet and 9 inches from the Maxtown Road right-of-way line.
And the application is based on the following findings of fact and conclusions, those which were previously read into the record with respect to not having an adverse impact.
So that's the motion. Perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Any discussion? I do have one point of discussion. Do we want to include, Joe, you mentioned making sure that the applicant cleans up some of the technical issues that you did not go through and review each, but is Ms. Mandrell aware of those technical issues in the final development plan text to make it consistent with the amendment?
Yeah, so she got a copy of the report. Pat, do you have any issue? The condition I would recommend is just the condition that those items all be sufficiently addressed prior to the issuance of the required revised zoning permit and/or sign, or the necessary sign permits.
Mr. Schaefer, is it correct that there's no material changes? It's just clarification?
Yeah,
of
it's
items
mostly
so
just
that there's continuity of text?
text changes for continuity and cleanup and accuracy of just fact. In terms of dates and when things happened, and this is an amendment to application and stuff like that. So we just need you to tighten some things up, really, mostly in the text. Yeah, so in the stuff you submitted in the review, and I meant to, did I not, I thought I'd sent this, I'm sorry, I must have forgot to hit send on the email. Well, that's important, then I'm sorry, I probably should go through those real quick with you, because
Yes,
they saw them, but apparently you didn't. So, we're talking about like, the title on one of the exhibits, the measurement on the exhibit needs to show the 3 feet, 3 inches, somewhere it shows, as noted in the report, and I can give you the detailed report. It says 3 feet in one place, but it's really 3 feet, 3 inches, so we just need that clarified. The exhibit needs to show you're going from 18 to 27 boxwoods on that same exhibit. The footer of the development text needs to reflect the date of the current submission, not the date of
We're
the,
going from 27 to 18.
what's that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got it
Sorry.
backwards. 27 to
wanna
18,
clarify
yep,
that.
I'm sorry, yep. Revising the date of the footer in the development text. Adding just verbiage about the property that's since been rezoned to PCD on page 1 of the development text. And again, I'm going through very high level, but I'm just giving you an idea of how sort of minor these changes are. That same edit needs to be made on page 2. And it's just reflecting the fact that the property's since been rezoned, just to make, it's currently reading like, the final development plan is currently reading like the old rezoning text, like the rezoning hasn't happened yet, and that has since happened. So we're just updating the text to reflect actions that have happened. Page 1 of the text, the 4th paragraph, adding the word amendment after the words final development plan, because this is the development plan amendment, not the original development plan. Page 7, adding the words following divergence was approved. And again, it's just clarifying which divergences were approved when. Again, I'm not going to drill down into the details on this, but it's just adding verbiage about this divergence was approved as part of this case on this date. Now we've got a new divergence being asked for as part of this. And we can, if you want to sit down, and get further clarification on this, we can. But I promise you, this is all real simple stuff. Some of it's just removing exhibits that we don't need to have as part of this application packet. There's another exhibit that you had addressed to me back in 2022 and amended back in June. Again, it says the sign's being moved 3 feet. It's actually being moved 3 feet, 3 inches. So again, just making that consistent. And that was it. I know I really just rushed through all of that, but that really gives the nature. It really is just truly about getting words and numbers just tightened up throughout all of it. So,
Okay,
Should we just say per technical review?
I was just going to say that because some of this, I think if I was.
yeah,
the
you
app-
don't need to list
if-
all of
if-
those.
If I was the applicant, I would probably want some of it listed in there, like the 27 to 18, and, the date on the footer probably wouldn't be, concerning, but a 3-foot versus a 3.3, obviously, that's why they're here for the 3.3, which we just granted. So would it not be okay for us to list some of the changes, or would that be too?
I
too-
think
too
you
deep in
could
the
probably
woods?
just say the condition being that all outstanding comments in staff's technical review dated as of July 10th, 2023, be addressed to staff satisfaction prior to issuance of the required revised zoning permit and/or zoning permits for signage. Does
And
that
was it-
sound, is that understandable?
I
So
still need
basically,
to meet with you to
you have to
figure it
revise
out.
the zoning
Yeah.
permit based on the
Right.
changes if they
Right.
get approved. Before before I can issue that, you need to just clean this stuff up.
Right. I get it.
Or if you don't do that, but you apply for the sign, similarly, I'm not gonna
Okay.
issue the sign permit
Right.
until you get this stuff
Right,
cleaned up.
right, I got it.
So,
If we add that to the motion that we have uh, a clerical, correct, final plan
Mhm.
based on the technical review of our staff dated July 10th, 2023, that would be completed prior to granting the required revised zoning permit.
The
Correct?
required revised zoning permit or zoning permit for signage. Or you could just say any.
I would be okay with that if,
so is that a motion to amend Mr. Carter's motion? Yes.
yes, sir.
Do I have a second to Ms. Walsh's amendment?
I second.
Any discussion on the amendment to Mr. Carter's original motion? Roll call on the amendment only.
On the addition of the amendment to the original motion.
Correct.
Roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Sears.
Yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes. Any other discussion on Mr. Carter's original motion to approve the application?
None.
All right, hearing none. Roll call.
Roll call, Mr. Bernert.
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Sears.
Yes.
Ms. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Welch.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I raised.
And again,
the issue.
That was a
Apologies, I
long
didn't
way
send
around the
that to
block,
you.
but we got there.
Now, Kurt, if you want to keep your seat, you have to repeat what Sarah said.
I can probably get close. It's not going to be verbatim.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can go ahead and just keep that.
So this closes the hearing on zoning case 2023-04. Do we have any other,
What is that?
oh, yes.
7:43 PM?
7:42, 3, whichever. Do we have any general public comment? Okay, hearing none. Our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for August 14th, 2023, and a site walk scheduled for August 21st, 2023. I assume, Mr. Schaefer, you'll be in touch with Mr. Leff, depending on whether or not he deems to cancel the August meeting and,
Correct, unless you want to just give me directive as a majority opinion of the commission that you want me to just automatically do that if we don't receive an application. I can go either way.
How far are you with your changes in the zoning resolution?
Not ready to present in August.
That's fine.
I'm making progress, but not ready to present in August.
Would you like a motion to,
Um,
or do you need that?
you're more than welcome to stay, you're more than welcome to leave. I mean, this is sexy stuff here that we're, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the rules of procedure do allow the majority of the commission to overrule the chair. I mean, I can't imagine, I'd be surprised if Mr. Leff wanted to have the meeting if there's nothing on the agenda.
Why don't you just let us know if we're going to have a next meeting?
Yeah,
Works for me.
yeah.
I'll tell him it doesn't seem like the rest of the commission was terribly eager to have the August meeting if they don't need to have it, but I'll let him make the final call for you.
I move to adjourn the meeting at 7:44.
Do we have any other business to come before the commission?
I do not. I'm still waiting to hear back on the review of the rules of procedure. I'll keep sort of poking the prosecutor's office to see if he can get that back for you. The rezoning application deadline was today. Like I said, we got nothing. I'll know on the 17th at the end of day whether or not we actually have any applications for August. So hopefully by middle of next week, end of next week, I'll have an answer for you as to whether or not we're going to have that August meeting. Just to let you know, the trustees did schedule their public hearing for Mira Luna. Theirs is going to be Wednesday, August 9th on that application.
Any other questions, comments, good of the order? There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand adjourned at 7:45.